I think I'm just going to share one of my favorite stories about Alexa. I gifted my mom an Alexa. How many of you have gifted your parents an Alexa? Show of hands. Anyone? All right. So, what is the best thing that happens after you give them an Alexa? Sorry? They cannot understand. So that's what I felt. When I gave my mom an Alexa, I thought, it's going to be a little bit of a difficult task for her to understand. But the next time I went back home, I was like, why don't you call me as often as you used to? She's like, I don't need you anymore. So I was like, what do you mean? So I can get half the things done through this. I don't have to call you to configure my settings or this or that. One of the most engaging family moment that my mom, me, and my niece used to have was where my niece would be crying and my mom would frantically call me saying that, listen, come here, can you open Baby Shark for her? So now she doesn't need me. She'll be like, Alexa, can you please play Baby Shark? And Baby Shark is already playing. So Alexa has slowly replaced me at my family also, and Ilan has said it's slowly replacing me next year as well. With that, I will hand this over to Jeff, who's going to speak to us about 10 things every voice app should do. So over to you, Jeff.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm the last session of today before we do the closing and everything. So thank you guys all for sticking around. I hope you've learned some cool things today. I'm going to spend a little time talking about a lot of lessons that I've learned as a developer building stuff for Alexa. And it's weird to talk about because I would guess most of us are developers of some kind in this room. And yet, the thing that I talk the most about when I talk about voice has nothing to do with coding. That's the easy part. Writing a little code to call an API or to grab a data value or pull something out of an array, that's the easy stuff. But thinking about how to build a really compelling voice experience for a user, that's where all the magic happens. And so that's what I want to spend a little time on today. So, like I said, we're going to talk about 10 things every voice app should do. Maybe. Okay. So the first one that I want to talk about is the idea of doing one thing really well. And I noticed that there was a presenter that happened right before lunch that covered a couple of these, but I'm going to go a little deeper on some of these topics. So we're going to, I have my phone hooked up here. We're going to talk to Alexa. We're going to use some examples as we go through this stuff. So let me get that set up also.
It's 3:25 p.m.
Okay. She's ready to go. Okay. So the idea of doing one thing really well. It's very tempting when we build software for voice to try and do all the things, right? I want to be able to give the user the ability to do all the things that our other software can do. And I don't know that that's always a good idea. I recommend doing one thing really well. So an example I'm going to give, I'm a big fan of American baseball. And so I have my team that I follow, and when it's in season, which is happening here in about a month, I follow my team every day. I want to know how they're doing, what place they're in, how many games they've won, how many they've lost. But the thing that I care about most is how many games back are they in the standings, right? How many more wins do they need to have to catch up to first place? And this is something that's really important and interesting to me. And so every day, I go look at the standings for my baseball team, which happens to be this one here, Cleveland. I had to get a screenshot while they were in first place. They weren't for most of the season. But in this place, Cleveland is my team, right? And I can come in here and I can see how many wins and losses they have, what their win percentage is. But the column that I really care about is this one. I care about how many games back are they, right? That's the interesting statistic to me. And so I thought it would be really useful to be able to build a skill that could tell me that specific information and nothing else. I don't want to know the news from the team or what recent players we added. I can go find that information someplace else. I want a very quick and easy way in the morning, maybe even as part of a routine, to be able to just find out what the position of that team is. So it is the off season, so this data is as of the end of the season last year, but I'll let you hear how this works. Ask games back about Cleveland.
The Cleveland Indians are 8 games back in the American League Central. They are in second place, with a record of 93 and 69. Which team would you like to know about next?
New York.
Did you want the Yankees or the Mets?
Yankees.
The New York Yankees are currently in first place in the American League East, with a record of 103 and 59. The Tampa Bay Rays are in second place, 7 games back behind the Yankees. Which team would you like to know about next?
Quit. So you can see it's very simple, very clear and obvious. I get the information that I want and we're out. We don't have to play around. We don't have to figure out menus or figure out how deep to go. It just does this one thing very, very well. And this is something that you should really consider as you're building skills is what is the one thing that we do really well? There's lots and lots of things that could be that thing, but if you're a pizza ordering skill, you better be really good at ordering a pizza. I don't care how good you are at like figuring out what my address is or taking credit cards or any of that other stuff, but if you can't make a really good pizza ordering experience, you should think about whether or not the skill is the right place to go for you. Because if I can't do it with my voice, if I can't do it easily and simply, I'm not going to use your skill. That's just plain and simple. Okay. So I gave the example. Sorry, I'll have one of these for when I have demos for you, which there will be a lot of. All right. So number 2 is make your name memorable, and this is really, really important. If you build a skill that is called Jeff's Super Happy Fun Time, it might seem like a really neat idea, like, oh, that's clever and fun, and people will find it funny. But I already forgot what that's called. Is it Super Fun Happy Time? Happy Fun? I don't know. And so your users aren't going to be able to remember either. A good example of this is a skill called the Magic Door. They've done a fantastic job of building a skill that really resonates in your head and reminds you what is the thing I'm supposed to call it. And so they, in all of their marketing and all their advertising and all the ways that they tell you about their skill, they have statements like this: Alexa, open the magic door. Didn't hear me, good. So in all of those cases, you're constantly reminded to open the magic door, right? That's the way that you play the game. So let me give you a quick look at this. Alexa, open the magic door.
Welcome back to the winter adventure. As we follow the trail, we walk through the trees, and a crow calls out. I wonder if he's hoping for a snack. We keep going. Is it just me, or does it seem to be getting darker and even colder? Okay, goodbye. We appreciate your feedback. Please leave us a review in the Alexa Skill Store.
All right. So what you can see with that one is that they start with that nice creaky door noise. There's no way any of you are going to forget the name of that skill. You're going to go home tonight and be like, well, Jeff did that magic door skill. That was kind of cool. It was like an adventure I went through, and there was a crow, and a guy was walking through snow. Like you can picture and feel all of that stuff, and it was all because you went through this magic door. So there's lots of ways to do this, though. You don't have to have something clever like the magic door, but there are all these really cool lead-in words when we build a skill. There are these orange ones. You can use any of these to open any skill. But if you think about how you talk about your skill, by using the appropriate one, when you think about your marketing and the way you detail your skill to your colleagues and friends and customers, using the right word can make a huge difference, right? If you look at the words I've used here, you can use any of these orange words anytime. But you can see that, like, launch rocket ship stories, what a great word to use with the idea of rocket ships, right? Or begin the amazing race, because you begin races, right? Just by thinking about how we talk about these things makes a huge, huge difference in how people remember and try to use your skill in the future. And the thing that I'm really trying to solve here is that if I asked any of you to go open WhatsApp on your phone right now, you know where the icon is, and you can see the words WhatsApp right underneath the app on your phone. But if I were to change the icon and change the name of that app, there's like a 0% chance you'd find it, right? Because you know what you're looking for, and when you don't find it, you don't find it. With voice, we don't even have the luxury of an icon or a name. People have to remember what your thing is. And so if they can't remember it, they're not going to use it. That's how it works. And so you really need to think about how we keep our name memorable and how we can do that. Here's a good example of something that I'm working on. You guys all familiar with this? Anybody that's ever played video games in the last 30 years might recognize this. This is the Triforce from the Legend of Zelda series. And I'm building this really cool trivia game. I call it TKO Trivia, but the idea here was I wanted to build a cool game that had some really unique aspects to it. One of the things that was interesting about this, and I actually have a prize, we'll see if anybody can get this. There's only 50 of these on Earth, but it's a very nice Alexa pin. I'll give this to anybody that can guess the answer to this. The idea behind this game is that I would give you 3 clues. I was going to call my skill What 3 Words, but apparently that's taken. So I give you 3 clues, and you have to tell me what those 3 things have in common. Okay? It's not going to be obvious, but somebody will get it. Ears, fruit, and socks. They all have something in common. Did someone say coffee? That is not correct. Ears, fruit, and socks. I don't know if anybody's going to get this. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay that no one gets it. They all have pairs. They all have pairs, right? There are pairs in fruit. There are pairs of socks. There are pairs of ears. They all have pairs. They're tricky problems, right? And so I was really looking for a way to give this skill, because I'm going to give you 3 words every time, 3 clues. I wanted to come up with a clever way to name this skill. And so I thought about the word trivia, because it's kind of like trivia. Trivia has the prefix tri in it, which means 3, T-R-I. And I wanted to use that, but I couldn't just call it trivia. That's very boring and not descriptive. So I thought about flipping it around, and I'll call it viatri, which is, this by itself means by way of, and this means 3, right? So my puzzle would be called by way of 3, which is kind of fun. In fact, I have a slide for that. But what I found is that every time I would explain the skill to someone, here's how it works, like I did with all of you. I'm going to give you 3 clues, and then we're going to go through this thing, and you're going to have to figure out what the thing is. I realized very quickly what the name of my skill should be. 3 clues. It's much easier, it's much more obvious, it's very clear what the name of my skill should be, because people will remember this. If I named it viatri, nobody is going to remember that, as clever and neat as I think it might be. This is the right thing to call it. All right, let's skip on to number 3. There's a big movement in thinking about voice for a lot of people to just build something that handles commands. If you've ever built an API before, APIs are command-driven. I send you something, you send me back information. That is not what voice should be. I mean, there is some of that, but that's not the thing that we really want to focus on. There's a skill I've built, which has not been updated recently. I'm going to have to go back and work on this. But it's a skill called Dev Tips. This was actually built for Alexa developers. And so if you had questions about how something worked, or how you approached a certain problem, or I wanted more information about the community day, or what's going on with reInvent, or whatever might be happening in the news, anything that Alexa developers would care about, I was trying to build it into this skill. And when I initially did it, I built things like this. Ask dev tips about monetization. I can do that now. And it'll tell me a little bit about what monetization is, and then it always ends with a URL so that you can go figure out find more information, right? And we bought the domain alexa.design, and so you can go to alexa.design / just about anything you want, and it will take you to information about that thing. So if you go to alexa.design / monetization, it's a whole page about how you monetize your skills and make money from them. If you want to learn about persistence, we have an article, a blog post about persistence, and if you go to alexa.design / persistence, these are intent. These are things that users intend to do, but they don't necessarily know to ask for monetization. They don't necessarily know to ask about persistence. They just want to learn new cool stuff. What are the things that I don't know today? Give me some more of that. These are intent-driven statements. These are the things that we want to think about for our users, so that when you say something like, play a SpeechCon for me, it can play a SpeechCon and then also say, by the way, if you want to know more about these, go to alexa.design / SpeechCons or whatever. So there's a big difference between these two. Do you guys see those? The idea of like just executing a command, assuming that your user knows your entire domain and knows all the things that they might be able to say is a big assumption. What you want to do is give them the opportunity to dive in and learn and grow and move their way through a conversation. So I can give you a quick demo of the dev tips. I'll do a SpeechCon, if my phone doesn't keep locking itself. All right. Alexa, open dev tips.
Welcome to Alexa Dev Tips. What can I help you with?
Play a SpeechCon.
Here's a SpeechCon I picked for you. Bon appetit. What do you want to know about?
Stop.
Au revoir.
So I built this in a way that it recognizes what locale I'm currently in. I believe that was one of the SpeechCons from Hindi. I believe. I didn't actually understand what she said, but I think it was. But she's able to pull out the specific locales from the specific user, reach into a database of SpeechCons that I have, and bring one out and play it for the user. but I didn't have to know what all the speech cons were, right? I was able to just get her to say one for me. So that's step tips. The idea there is really to think about, what does my user really know? And they usually know far less than you think. All right, number 4, simplifying choices. This is one of my favorite sections of this talk. It's going to require some participation, so get ready. When we have a conversation, we have two people going back and forth saying things to each other. Sometimes there's even questions, right? Like, hey, tell me about this, or what's your favorite thing, or whatever. But when you ask someone a question that's open-ended, when you say, what do you like? There's a lot of opportunity to be wrong in that question, right? Maybe I didn't understand you, or I'm not in the right context or the scope. I want to make sure that I'm really clear on what the question is. But open-ended answers are really hard for users. They're really, really hard to be like, oh, what's the thing I want to come up with? If you give them specific choices, it's much easier. Let me demonstrate this. So, I got to talk about questions first. So an open-ended question might be something like, do you have another question? Or would you like to know something else? I might. I don't know what else to ask for. These kinds of questions often lead to someone leaving your skill because they just don't know what to say. And a lot of times, because they don't know what to say, they don't say anything. So encourage them. Give them some kind of yes-no answer, or I can hit the right button. If you give them some kind of yes-no answer, or some kind of opportunity to know what the scope and the context of the question is. So in some cases, it can be, what can I help you with? I'm sorry, I said that wrong. We come back to this. All these questions are yes-no. Do you want, is there, would you like to know something else? We don't generally want to give them a yes-no question. What we want to do is focus them in on the specific thing they want to do, like what can I help you with, or what topic can I assist with? Now, this is where the participation comes in. I'm going to need you to raise your hands at some point. The way this works is you don't need to say anything, but I'm going to present you all with a choice. And when you know the answer, all I need you to do is raise your hand. You don't have to tell me what your answer is. I just need you to visually indicate that you've made a decision, okay? So the way this one works, I'm going to require you to choose one of two things forever. You can never, ever change your mind after this moment. Are you ready? Within 3 seconds, everybody has their hand up, right? Everybody knows they want vanilla or they want chocolate. They know their answer, right? And all of you are willing to commit to that for life. You know right now that I never want vanilla again, right? I think that's amazing. Okay, we're going to do it again. Same experiment, same thing. As soon as you know your answer, raise your hand in the air, okay? Remember, you can only pick one forever. Anybody? I see a couple hands. People are getting ready. This is much harder, right? This is so hard because there's so many possibilities. There's so much choice here. This is the fundamental problem with talking to a skill. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. It's so hard. I can't commit to a thing. By the way, we need to take one step back. There's all these flavors on here. Who picked swamp? Anybody? Did anybody pick swamp as a flavor that they're like, yeah, that's the one that I'd like? Just so you guys know, I didn't realize what this was either. I had to do some research. This is what swamp is. It actually sounds pretty good. All right, so let's jump past that. So let's say that we have a fruit stand skill, and we have all these beautiful fruits available, and people can choose what they want, and so we say this to them. We have apples, bananas, oranges, lemons, grapes, kiwis, blackberries, strawberries, and mangoes. Which fruit do you want? I already totally forgot the list. I don't even know what you have anymore, right? One of the key things that you want to do in this situation, the first one, is let them know you're going to ask them a question. So you say, hey, which fruit do you want? We have, and then you give them the list. Now they know, like, oh, they're going to want me to pick something. But when I do it in this order, I hear the whole list, and then you say, oh, which one do you want? I wasn't paying attention. I don't know, right? So this is an example of how we want to flip these things over. But on top of that, this is way too many choices. We want to limit the choices that a user has. So let's back it up to just these offerings, right? And instead I can say, which fruit do you want? Apples, bananas, or oranges? Now the thing about users with voice is they know they always have the power to say other stuff. And so you can say apples, bananas, or oranges, and if they say blackberries, you can do one of two things. I'm sorry, we don't offer blackberries, or cool, I'll get some blackberries and add them to your order. Right? In either case, it's fine. You could also say apples, bananas, oranges, or something else, giving them the opportunity to say something else, but then they at least have some context around what you're looking for. But you can see that I moved the question to the beginning. By having that question at the beginning, they know something's coming they're going to have to decide on. All right, number 5. Use the one breath test. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I tried to find some good pictures of someone taking one breath. This is a hard thing to find a photo for. There's this one. I thought this was pretty good. He looks like he's probably got a nice deep inhale going. And for those of you that aren't afraid of the ocean or the water, this one certainly suggests one breath. He doesn't have a tank or anything on, so he's got the length of one breath to go there. I used to have another slide in this that was the third one, which was a man getting a breathalyzer test, which would also be one breath, but potentially could get you in a lot of trouble. So using the one breath test is a really good example of this, and I have my Star Wars skill, which I talked about this morning a little bit. I'm hoping you guys all know who this is. This is Luke Skywalker, if you don't know. And so I started building this skill, and I was writing all these really elaborate answers with long histories about each of the characters. And I still have the Luke Skywalker one that way. So I'm going to ask my skill. I'm going to let you guys hear what Alexa says for Luke. Ask Star Wars Databank about Luke Skywalker.
You asked me about Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was a Tatooine farm boy who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest Jedi the galaxy has ever known. Along with his friends Princess Leia and Han Solo, Luke battled the evil Empire, discovered the truth of his parentage, and ended the tyranny of the Sith. A generation later, the location of the famed Jedi Master was one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. What else can I provide information about?
Stop. That's a lot.
Goodbye.
That's too much, right? This is way more information than I want. What I'd much rather hear is, Luke was a Jedi Knight, he did this, he did that, what else can I help you with? Who else do you want to know about? He's related to, like, his sister is Leia, whatever other base information you want, and then if the user wants to follow up, they can follow up and say, well, who's Leia? Or who's their dad, if anybody knows the answer to that question. So let me give you another example of a better answer. This is meant for humor, but I want you to hear the Darth Vader answer. Ask Star Wars Databank about Darth Vader.
You asked me about Darth Vader. Darth Vader is a bad man. Also, spoiler alert, he is Luke Skywalker's father. How may I be of assistance?
Stop. Okay. So you can see that there's a very big difference between those two, right? One, I was going on and on and on about Luke's history and all this other stuff, and the other one, I gave you a very specific, correct answer about what he is and what he's about. So the idea here is to keep it short. Like, we're not in a situation, rarely are we in a situation, where the user wants to sit there and listen for hours and hours. They want to do the thing, they want to find out the information they need, and they want to move on. Okay, number 6, include a variety of responses. This is a really hard thing to do. As we start building our skills, as we start going into stuff, we find that there's a way we want to do it. Let me give you an example, a bad example. Let's say you're playing chess with a friend, and you guys meet every Saturday to play chess. And no matter what, your friend makes the same moves every single game. Doesn't even matter what your moves are. They're going to make the same moves every single time, and maybe you win, maybe you lose, but it's boring. It's predictable. You know exactly what's coming, when it's coming, and it's impossible. And what's weird as I complain about this is that if you think about, I don't know, all of the web and mobile development we've ever done, this is exactly what we're asked to do. Think about every interface you've ever built for a website or a mobile app or anything like that. Here's what your buttons should look like. Here's the layout you should use. Here's the guidance for how far things should be apart. Here's how you want to organize these things, right? We have entire style guides for, I think this is the Google one, this is the Apple one. They go on and on about the right way to do things, the right way to lay things out. And with voice, we're trying to flip it like completely upside down. I think it's exactly the opposite of how we think about web and mobile. With web and mobile, you want predictability. You want to be able to scan a page and know exactly what you need to do without even really reading it, right? But with voice, if it's consistently the same over and over and over, it's boring and it's really hard to use on a regular basis. You need it to feel like a conversation. If any of you and I were to have a conversation, and then tomorrow we meet up and we have another conversation, it's going to be different. We're not going to use the same words. We're not going to use the same intonations. There's going to be a lot that's different about it, even if we're just talking about the weather or something simple. So one of the things that I recommend is for every statement that your skill can make to your user, you should have at least 5 to 7 random variations of that. One might be, how can I help you? Another one might be, what else do you want to know? Right? All of these things really mean the same thing, but by constantly changing that up and constructing sentences that are potentially completely unique, depending on how many segments you have, you can really change this up quite a bit. I'll show you an example of this with a skill I'm building, the trivia game called TKO Trivia. So with this, I'm just going to start the skill. It's just going to welcome me to the game, and then I'll quit, and I'm going to go in again so you can hear another one. But I have dozens of welcomes, and I have hundreds of goodbyes. Have you guys, I don't know if this is common here, I'm imagining you've heard it though, the idea of like, see you later alligator, after a while crocodile, right? You guys have heard those statements. There's actually like 80 of those. I didn't realize for don't fly butterfly, there's all sorts of like different ones for different animals. So I have all of those plus a bunch of other stuff loaded into my goodbye. So I'll do a hello and a goodbye, and then we'll do another hello. Open TKO Trivia.
This is TKO Trivia. If you thought Jeopardy was challenging, you're in for a treat. What would you like to do now?
Stop.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Open TKO Trivia.
This is TKO Trivia. If you thought Jeopardy was challenging, you're in for a treat. What should we do next? You can say give me a random question, or start today's game.
Stop.
Catch you on the rebound.
Okay, so you can see that she picked the Jeopardy part both times, but the second time we entered the skill, she actually gave me some things that I could try, right? You could say this, or you could ask this question. She didn't do that the first time. And then on the way out, obviously we had 2 different exits. So what it's actually doing is I have a database that has all of my goodbyes, all of my hellos, all of this stuff is stored here, and all I do is make a call out and say, hey, I need a welcome message, or I need a goodbye message. Or in some of these more complicated ones, I have speech cons for when you get an answer correct, or speech cons for when you get something wrong. In all of these cases, I can just continue to add entries to this data table, and it will continue to just randomize out of that list. So if I come up with another idea, I can dump into the table, and instantly it's live and ready to roll. I don't have to do anything to my code. I don't have to do anything to my skill to certify anything. All of this stuff can be edited on the fly and easily update my skill pretty quickly. So you also want to vary the order that you present your statements, right? When it's possible, you want to be able to mix things up. Here's a good example. I talked to somebody earlier in this audience about building a travel agency skill. This is a great example. If you're building a travel agency skill, there's 5 things you need, right? I need to know where you're going from, where you're going to, what airline you want, and then the dates that you want to leave and return. The thing that we forget as developers sometimes is that the order here does not matter whatsoever. So when someone comes in to book a flight, you can say, okay, where are you flying from? And they say, Bangalore, India. And you say, okay, cool, where do you want to go? Right? And we continue this conversation, we march them through things. But we could also build structures that say, when the user says, I want to fly from Bangalore to San Francisco on December 6th, returning January 10th. When they say that, we've just knocked out 4 of these, and now I can come back and say, okay, what airline do you want? Right? I can just pluck out the one piece that's left. But we have no problem. If I wanted to, I could do them in this order, right? There's nothing wrong with that. All right, when are you leaving? Okay, what airline do you want to use? Okay, where do you want to go? The order doesn't matter at all. And so it's really important to mix that up for the user, because if they think they know what's coming, they stop paying attention. But if you keep them on their toes and they're like, wait, they didn't ask me that first last time, what's next? Now they're really engaged and they're focused in on using your skill, using your application, and it makes a huge difference in the kind of engagement you're going to get. Okay, number 7, handle the unexpected gracefully. This is a really big thing that a lot of people forget, is that there's so many ways to break a skill. There's so many things you could say that are wrong. So I have another American sports example here, but oftentimes you're going to hear things like this, right? there was a problem with the requested skills response. This is what Alexa says if you don't handle anything. There's actually one of our Alexa champions actually made a T-shirt that has this statement like all over the front of the shirt. It's pretty funny. But you can change this. Just change this to something simple. Make fun of yourself. I do this all the time. It seems our trivia questions are better than our software developers. Something's broken, but we've alerted our team to the problem. Can I offer you a random trivia question instead, right? Something broke, but I was able to catch the error and redirect the user and say, okay, well, I don't know why that broke for you, but why don't you try this thing that probably works instead? Right? I can redirect them and keep them in my skill, not just let it break and let them exit. So I was talking about American sports. I'm a big baseball fan. But imagine someone comes into my skill and they want to know how many games back an American football team is. Well, my skill doesn't do football. It only does baseball. So if they came in and said the New York Jets, I would have to say something, right? And I need to handle this gracefully. So this is the way that I handle that situation. I'm sorry, the New York Jets aren't a baseball team. Is there something different or some other different team I can help you with? Now, the thing is I don't know what they said. I don't actually even care what they said. I just know they didn't match one of the 30 teams that I know of. So I could say, if you said, I want pizza tacos, I want to know how many games back they are, I would say the same thing. I don't think pizza tacos are a team. Why don't you ask me about one of the baseball teams that's available, right? But I'm handling this in a graceful way so that it feels like part of the experience, and it's not just something that broke as I was working through the skill. All right, number 8, make enhancements based on data. This is hopefully super obvious to all of us, but it's so easy to collect data in your skill that you really want to make sure that you're doing this on a regular basis. Just within the tools that we have in the developer console, you can see all sorts of interesting data like this. So what intents are being hit, what were being said, what slot values are here. This is a custom interface I have that I've built, but it's the same idea, right? I can see which intents are being hit, what things are happening, what events are firing inside my skill, and I can use that information to figure out exactly what I want to do with my code. So I can say like, wow, a lot of people are saying things to my skill that I wasn't expecting. Maybe I should handle that in a more unique way, or maybe, people constantly want this specific weird topping on our pizzas. Maybe we should offer that because we're constantly telling them we don't offer it. Maybe that's something to use as user feedback, right? We can also look at our individual intent. So this is that dev tip skill. And what I found is we built a custom intent into it, which was get news. And it was supposed to tell you all of the latest things that had happened with Alexa within the last 14 days or so. And so I found very quickly that the answer intent, the thing that I thought was the most popular feature, which is like, tell me about persistence or tell me about monetization, that's the purpose of the skill. That's why I thought I built it. We found very quickly that the get news intent was the thing people were using the most. They wanted to come and hear about the latest releases, the new features, whatever events happened to be going on. That was the stuff that they really focused in on. And so we shifted a lot of our effort and a lot of our development time into thinking about how we can make the news features better, because that seems to be the thing people are using the most. So this is just a screenshot from the developer portal, though, for my statistics. But using this data can really drive your future development to understand what you should and shouldn't be doing. All right, number 9, we're getting there. We're almost done. This is a big one, too. The idea of providing contextual help. So we all try to provide help inside of our skills, but real contextual help is hard, but so, so valuable. So here's an example of non-contextual help. This is what most people do. The user says help to the skill, and they hear this. Oh, this skill lets you order from our big menu of pizza, breadsticks, pasta, sandwiches, wings, and desserts. What would you like to do? And no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I am in the skill, if I say help, I hear this. This doesn't help me at all. There's no help here, unless I happen to be a user using it for the first time, and I got confused and said help right away. There's so much more we could do here. I like to use a lot of imagery. You've got to help them, right? You've got to reach out, give them an opportunity to succeed. So instead, if they're saying help, do something like this. Hey, it looks like you're trying to order a pizza. You can add or remove toppings by saying things like add pepperoni or remove anchovies. You can also add extras like sauces, extra cheese, or different crusts. Just ask for them. Do you want to get back to your pizza, or do you need help with something else? And this gives them a clear opportunity to say, well, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing, and that's the problem I had. Or, no, I need help with this. And then you can grab those values and give them the custom help for the thing that they're trying to do. Right? So help often becomes an afterthought for most skill builders, but it's so valuable because people know they can say help to every single skill. And again, this is another cheesy graphical reference, but you really want to give them an opportunity to do the thing. Give them an opportunity to have success in your skill. That's how they come back to it over and over and over again. Okay, last one, number 10. Beta test your code. Beta test your skills. It seems so obvious, but people treat skills like little pet hobby projects. And before you know it, you've built this really cool thing that's only about half-baked and only works for you because you never let anyone else use it. You just threw it out into the world and hoped that everyone would love it as much as you do. And that's not how software works. Even the best software out there, they've got 30% of people that hate it, right? They have to use it for work or whatever it is, but there's a lot of people that just absolutely dislike the way that it works, and you're not giving anyone an opportunity to provide you with any input. So beta testing, we have a fantastic beta testing program built right into the developer portal. You can add up to 5,000 people for up to 60 days, I think. And it allows you to get a lot of feedback, right? Let people use it before it's available to the public. You could send them surveys and ask them questions about what did you like, what did you not like? Hey, I just added 100 more questions to my trivia game. Why don't you try those out? Doing all of these kinds of beta testing things, this one I sent out to 37 users. But I'm able to send this information out. I can contact and communicate with them. They can respond back to me. They can give me feedback on what they like and what they don't like. But on top of that, I get all that extra data, right? All the user data, all the utterances, all the slot values, all the things that they're trying to do. I get all of that information behind the scenes so that I can make my skill better. I can realize that they're all trying to order pineapple pizza, which I don't know why people do that, but they do it. So maybe we should start offering pineapple on our pizza. I was just doing some research. This is my first trip to India, by the way, and thank you guys all for having me. I found out a really interesting statistic that I did not know. So I live in the United States. Most of our bananas come from South America. I had no idea the banana production you guys have here in India. Do you know that you guys are more than double the next country in banana production? Something like 1 billion bananas a year come out of India. It's amazing. So I hope you like bananas because you guys have a lot of them here. But it was remarkable. I think Brazil or someplace in the South America was second, but you guys were double them. It was remarkable to find that as a statistic. Okay, so back to beta testing. That was just an interesting side story. So you want to be able to have people sit down, use your skill, try stuff, have an experience with their family, their friends. That you want to get a feel for how people really use your code. And there's a couple ways that I recommend doing this. This is a picture of me and my team. It's actually Sohan right here, if you guys know Sohan. We were all in Seattle, and we were going through some skills. We were live streaming some things. We were all talking, but we were trying skills and sharing our favorites and letting people try things out and share. But one of the things that we found is this is good, but there's often a lot of joking and side conversations and not a lot of paying attention. One of the things that I recommend is to really think about doing it like The Wizard of Oz. I'm hoping all of you are at least familiar with the concept of that movie. But you have Dorothy and this cast of characters, and they encounter this wizard who is really just a normal person, but he's hiding behind this curtain, making it seem like he's this big, powerful thing, right? And the secret to building a really good skill starts before you ever write any code. You want to be the wizard. You want to sit in a box where you can't see the people, and you want them to come up to you and just have a conversation with you as if you are the skill. Imagine, again, we're talking no code, no interaction models, no dev tools, no CLIs, no APIs, none of that stuff. I'm just sitting in a cardboard box, and I have people come up to me and say, I'd like to open a bank account. These are the things people are trying to do. And I'm thinking about how they're trying to interact with me, and I'm thinking about how I have to craft my responses in such a way that Alexa could do it the same way. But by sitting in that box and allowing people to talk to me, I get a very quick feeling for how people will ask things, how they'll interact with my code, how they'll think about using my skill. This is a fantastic model for doing that. All right, so we went through a ton of things. I promised only 10 tips, so I'll stick at 10. I think I'm just about at time. So if you want to just get a quick snap of this, this is all the stuff we just covered. These are the lessons that I hope you leave here with today. These are really important things. And if you're not going through each of these and thinking carefully about each of these lessons as you go through building a skill, you're just doing yourself a disservice. It doesn't mean your skill won't be successful. It doesn't mean that a lot of people won't like it. But more people could like it. More people could use it if you think about these lessons every time you go through it. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for having me here this week. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was on point, rife with all the pop culture references. And thank you for spoiling Star Wars for me. I was planning on catching up with it sometime in the future. Next thing you're going to tell me Anakin is Darth Vader. Right. All right. Can we have a loud round of applause for Jeff, please? I'd like to invite Prachi on stage to give a small, different token of appreciation to Jeff.